Hello, chums. DK Bananas might just be one of my favorite games of all time. This isn't really like a review or anything, kind of just like an impressions sort of deal that I wanted to make because I want to kind of immortalize how I feel about this game. Because like, in case for whatever reason you didn't think so, this is modern day Mario Odyssey. This game is Mario Odyssey if it came out in 2025 on better hardware. And like, yeah, I can already tell I'm going to be replaying this game a lot of times over the next few years, and this is going to be one of the big games that people are going to be looking back on for the Switch 2, I can imagine. And it's really crazy to think about. We're like a month and a bit into the console and we already have a game like this. Like, obviously Mario Kart World is a very good game in its own right, but I feel like that's a little bit more like expected. Like, that game is a Mario Kart game, you know what you're expecting from that, but nobody was expecting a 3D Donkey Kong game, or just a Donkey Kong game in general, considering that, you know, the series has been dormant for like 10 years. But yeah, I'm going to talk about the things that I felt after finishing Donkey Kong Bananza. I have done both the main story and the post game, outside of a few things that I still need to do. I will talk about spoilers a little bit later in the video, and I'll make it clear when I'm going to talk about spoilers. But for the first bit, it's going to be more general kind of overview stuff. So the first general thing I want to talk about is the movement in the game, and obviously controlling the character in the 3D platformer is very important. And in Mario Odyssey, well, I'm going to be referencing back to Mario Odyssey a lot, I wonder why. But in Mario Odyssey, that's pretty much like the perfect Mario moveset ever. He felt like butter to control, and there was a bunch of stuff you could do. And they did not skimp out on this game either. Sometimes I rewatch like my reaction to the Switch 2 stuff, and I remember from the Donkey Kong Bananza reveal trailer in that direct, that one of the first things that I commented on about the game is how sick the movement looked in that one little clip segment that I might put at this part of the video, so you know what I'm talking about. And ever since then, I was like, this game is going to be crazy to control. And that little snippet of gameplay that they showed at that part, that is just literally how the entire game feels. There's something even just about the roll specifically. You put a roll in a video game, it's gonna be awesome. And it just like, it pairs so well into just like how, like the animations too, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, like, just the movement is so like lively and fun, and it's like fast. And even like, you get Bananza's abilities that, like, for example, the zebra one is supposed to be like the one where you run fast. But I found myself like literally never using it because controlling just base DK was so much fun that I just liked going around the map as him. And like, I think Donkey Kong as a character to control in a 3D space is literally perfect because he's just like a silly fucking ape that's just like running around and doing shit. And he's just like, especially because of the design change that made him a little bit more like, he looks a little more funny now. It is very funny to just see him like hurling himself at shit, and like, it makes a lot more sense than like Mario moving like that, for example. Obviously I didn't have a problem with Odyssey it being Mario, but with like DK in this case, it contextually feels perfect. Also, yeah, like what I mentioned with the animations and stuff, I kind of want to go into just like the greater world design and things and the different themes of the layers, which I won't get into because obviously a lot of the ones that I would like to talk about are in the later parts of the game. But yeah, think of the kingdoms in Mario Odyssey, just literally apply that again. That's just the amount of like variation in some of these layers. I guess to like nitpick, I did think that some of the layers that I really liked were a little like short, because again, from Odyssey, there were some kingdoms that were like, I wouldn't really call them like filler, but they were significantly shorter than some of the bigger ones. Like, you have like, compare your New Donk City to the Lake Kingdom. Like, those are both completely different beasts. Like, one of them is like one of the main parts of the game, and then one of them is just kind of a place you're in for like maybe like 20 minutes. And there's some places in Bananza that are kind of like that also, and I didn't have a problem with it. I just kind of wish that some of them were a little bit longer and had more variation. Because obviously the longest ones are usually the ones with like the Bananza abilities. So you have just like these big play areas where you learn a new ability, and you're able to use them, and the areas are usually designed around those abilities. But outside of that, there are some like areas that have like multiple sub-levels, but like there are ones that are just like a single sub-level or maybe like two, and then you're done with the area. And I felt that with the tropical layer specifically, which I mean, I don't think that's really a spoiler. They've shown that. That was an area I really liked, and I thought could have had some more variation if it had sub-levels, but it is genuinely just like one and done. But I didn't really mind because that area by itself is still like long enough for it to be fine. Also, like the characters are just really sick. You have the different animals that live underground, and then the different kinds of fractones. And I liked the fractones a lot more than I thought I would, because before release they were kind of filling in the helper character thing where they're just kind of the NPCs that live around, and I thought that was kind of gonna be it. But they have a lot more character than I thought they did. They like refer to themselves as we instead of I, which is like a really small thing, but I think that adds a lot to the character, because like they just have this really weird way of speaking that's like really charming. And they also can change their shape to mimic whatever they're trying to mimic, and sometimes they'll do it to mimic the animals in the area. You have guys that are shaped like the monkeys in the first location that you go into after the tutorial, and like a bunch of the other stuff, which I think is really cute. And their whole deal is like music. It's the whole kind of theme of the game, which I think is really cool, especially with Pauline as a character, because like with Odyssey, it really was just, it's Mario and Cappy. The plot is that you're stopping Bowser's wedding with Peach, and you go on this big journey, but there's not really like a story being told, I guess. It's kind of just like, let's go see the world and stop the evil Bowser. But in Bananza, the story is about Pauline. Everything about the story is about her character development and her learning to sing, and to sing in front of people and to not be scared. You know, it's a very basic plot, but I think with the style of the game and how it's told, I really liked it. I'll talk about the timeline stuff later in the spoiler segment, but like it does... the story with Pauline definitely gives some really cool context for the wider Mario universe, which is also another thing I really like about this game, is that it really is just like, it feels like this is just another story that's happening in this universe. And I mean, going back to like general gameplay, this game is oozing with quality. Like you can tell that the people that made this really cared and really just had the time that they needed to make something this good and impactful and just like full of life and soul. And like, I'm so glad that this game wasn't just Mario Odyssey 2, because obviously I really liked Mario Odyssey, but I think by switching it up and having it be about Donkey Kong instead, there's just so much room for way more just creative choices, like artistically and gameplay wise and stuff like that. Because I mean, obviously this game is still very similar to Odyssey in a lot of ways, even just in like how it is made. It's kind of hard to just explain, but like watching gameplay or just playing it yourself, you can really tell. Even in just sometimes how like the camera moves in like little cutscenes and stuff, and how characters are animated, and obviously the whole like bananas being the power moons and stuff like that. You could really tell that it is similar. But I think if it was just literally Mario Odyssey, but again, it would feel like just like Galaxy 2, where it felt like they just wanted to make more Mario Odyssey, which I mean, I think this makes it pretty clear that they didn't want to just do that. And again, I wouldn't have minded if they just made another Mario Odyssey, if they made a sequel, because I think that game is still very fun. But this, to me, is just always so much superior as a concept. And one thing this game really did was it made me love Donkey Kong a lot more, just like as a character, because especially with how he's animated, it's extremely high quality. All of the cutscenes are really good looking, and all of the characters are animated super well. There's so many moments in the game where Donkey Kong's personality is just really has a chance to shine through. And it's really weird because like obviously like I like Donkey Kong. I have played Donkey Kong games before, but like this is like a whole other level. The last Donkey Kong game was what, Tropical Freeze, which I want to say came out in like 2014 or something, like a really long time ago. Since then he's been like pretty much absent outside of like the movie, in which he's just a different character pretty much, and like he's got like a place at Universal now. if you consider that a Donkey Kong installment. But like, this is a complete other level with just, it's 3D. Donkey Kong hasn't been 3D in a while. The quality is just so high, and it really does him so much justice. Oh, in terms of general things, I think that's all I have to say. So I will transition now into spoiler talk. So if you haven't finish the game or you don't want to see spoiler stuff, if you are going to play it, do not watch any further, because I'm going to talk about the biggest thing first, pretty much. Are you gone? Are you gone? Are you gone? Are you gone? Okay, cool. So basically they brought King K. Rool back. I had a discussion with Threat when we were both pretty early in the game about if we thought he was going to be in, to which I very strongly said no. I did not think he was going to be in. I do know now that there were like theories floating around after like the direct and the trailer and stuff talking about how he could be in that I didn't see. But at that time, like at the start of the game, I gave a resounding no for if he would be in. Because I just thought with how they changed the DK design to further distance it from like the Rareware design. And I feel like with Country Returns and stuff, they've been kind of trying to steer him in a new direction that's a little bit not as directly connected to the Rare games, because obviously legally it's a little bit dubious with Microsoft owning them now. Because I assumed that Bananza, especially because at that point in the game I didn't know what the timeline thing was either. Everyone was really scared that it was going to be a huge retcon, and I was under the assumption that if it was a retcon it was supposed to be like a reboot of the series, which I thought with the redesign made sense. But as I played more of the game, I kind of started to realize they really did not forget about the original Country series. It especially gets a lot more apparent in the second half. I think it hit me when I got to the racing layer, whichever one, I don't know the name specifically, the one with Diddy Kong and Dixie, and they start talking about the Country games, and they bring up Candy Kong, and I saw that. I literally pointed at my screen and I kind of realized King K. Rool could be in this fucking game. I thought about it for a minute. I think I realized whenever I got closer to the end, before he appeared, that some of the enemies, the basic enemy type, have like the crocodile skeleton inside of them, and I was like, is that supposed to be like the Kremlings? And it was just like, with how Diddy and Dixie were very much talking about it. And then also Cranky Kong as well, who you see a lot earlier in the game. He likes to just reference stuff like he did in the original Country games as well. And I thought it was, I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit, but I think it's really cool that from the beginning Cranky Kong is after K. Rool. He assumes it's him, but because his descriptions of K. Rool are so like vague that you could very easily apply them to Void Kong. So as the player, you might not know that it's K. Rool until you've seen him. And I think it's really cool that they like foreshadow it as early as that, because obviously like Cranky Kong is like the old one who knows everything. So he like is already just dead set on it being K. Rool. But as the player, you assume that that's not the case, which I think is like a really cool way to like kind of hint at it and like recontextualize it once you have finished the game. My suspicions were immediately confirmed once you get to the root, because when you get there and they show it to you, that is just King K. Rool's stomach. That is just his gilded stomach plate sticking out of the ground. And I was looking at it and I was like, that's not him, right? I pretty much, as soon as I saw it, I think I knew, but at the same time I was like, no, that's such a weird pull. There's no way they would bring K. Rool back. Because even with his return in Smash Ultimate, that felt more like because people were like begging for him to come back. It felt like the exception. It felt like he came back because it was Smash Ultimate. It was like the big celebration game. But when I saw that, I was just so struck to see that he was actually back. And then obviously you fight Void Kong and you have the whole cutscene of waking the root up, and then Void Kong reaches for it. There's like a little cutscene where Void Kong reaches for the root for a really long time, and I was like, they're gonna show him here. And then they proceeded to do that. He opens his eye and punches him. And you see the bloodshot eye and the green around it, and I immediately fucking just yelled. And then from that point until the very end of the game, the vibe switches up instantly as soon as K. Rool starts speaking. And they just, in his introduction scene, he's animated so perfectly. They completely like modernize his kind of old manic nature, where he's like talking shit about the Kremlings and how he's, you know, very selfish. And it's literally the perfect introduction for the character again. And then, they literally canonize him being gone from the series. since Donkey Kong 64 by having it be so that he went underground after the events of that game to try to find the Bananza route and then fell asleep down in the route for like however long is between those games, which is why he wasn't in the Returns games. They literally canonize him being gone from the series, which is like such a cool like kind of way to explain something like that canonically, because obviously he wasn't in the games, I think, because Rare made the character. I think that is why they didn't want to use K. Rool. They wanted to try to make new villains to distance themselves from that part of the history. Like, I feel like modern DK before Bananza was very heavily based on the Returns games specifically, because they very rarely reference stuff from before. The only thing I could think of was them using the DK rap in the Mario movie. But this game, just it embraces that old series that people have missed for so long. Like, K. Rool is handled so perfectly, and then like you go to the true planet core, which is like the final layer of the game, where the first thing you see is a huge statue of him, which is the most in-character thing ever, and then surrounding it is the actual Kremlings, who were like wearing the armor things that the enemies were wearing at the start of the game. You see a bunch of the critters throughout the final layer, and just like seeing them, I mean obviously they were always 3D models, but seeing them like with modern sleek 3D models, even as someone who hadn't played the country games all the way before, it was like strangely emotional seeing how far it has come. Part of me kind of wishes that I recorded my reaction to like the final bosses, plural, pretty much, because that's another thing I really like, is that the game just doesn't fucking end. I feel like you fight like a final boss like 3 separate times before the game ends, but like they get K. Rool's just aura so good. Dude, I have a clip of whenever I reached K. Rool in the planet core. I literally stopped and like went into photo mode because he had his like back turned with the cape blowing in the wind. I was just like, dude, they got him so perfectly. And there are like no words to describe how crazy the fake out ending was with the credits into Gangplank Galleon. I don't even know how to describe how I felt. I did see a video on YouTube titled like Donkey Kong Bananza OST Gangplank Galleon. There was nothing in the thumbnail, but I was just like, this could be a spoiler or it couldn't be. I'm really happy that there was no spoilers in the thumbnail, because as I played the rest of the game, I had no idea if that was real. And once I got to that point, I was just like freaking out. And I had no idea until, as I'm recording this video, I finished the first country game. I had no idea that the fake out credits segment was actually a reference to the first game, because it feels like fourth wall breaks like that are so much more common nowadays, because like the rules of video game like presentation and stuff is just so much more well known now. So like figuring out that that was in the original game as well, that is crazy for a game that came out in what I think was like the early 90s. To do that, they have like the fake logo, and then like the transition into Gangplank Galleon is just so fucking perfect. That is like, that moment in the game is gonna be one that I remember like literally forever. And the fucking the actual roar that I let out when you spiral up to the surface and it zooms out to reveal New Donk City from Super Mario Odyssey, and just that entire cutscene where K. Rool takes over and they do the camera thing where it's facing DK and Pauline looking towards the city, and then she says something like not now that I'm so close to like being home or whatever, and then the camera turns and it's all just K. Rool, and you see like the video feed of like the Kremlings like cheering and shit, and there was like the little thing from the Cascade Kingdom in the music during that part, and I could have cried, bro. I think there's something so triumphant about the final stretch of the game being in New Donk City for like the developers. It is just crazy, because locations that have previously appeared in Mario games do not tend to appear again. That is something that they just don't do, unless it's like Mario Kart with like an exception like Delfino Square or something. You very rarely see a location previously in a Mario game be in a Mario game again. Like even like the Mushroom Kingdom, that changes every time. It is a different iteration every single time. So to see the New Donk City, obviously it's designed differently for the game and it's like a lot bigger, but just seeing New Donk City again, just as a location in the Mario world, was insane. I remember just like, I saw the really shitty like realistic rendered humans on the ground, and I was just like, there's no way we're actually doing this. And then when you get in, there's the advertisements that reference candy And fucking Lanky Kong. Of all characters, fucking Lanky Kong, they do the funny face DK rap reference. I was giggling in my little chair, and it's like I don't even need to describe what the ending just means. Having K. Rool, the king of rot. The king of rot? I don't think I even need to talk about how hard that goes. And just like they made sure that when you beat K. Rool at the end of the game, they made sure to solidify he is on the surface now, and that means he is able to come back, which is just the best news ever. They even reference it too. They have like the banners when you're going through the final area that says the king is back, which is just, oh dude, so much of his dialogue was so good. Like whenever I remember literally like fucking yelping. I know I'm backpedaling a little bit during the fake out credit segment, when he uses his propeller and rises up and he screams like filthy monkeys as he's like chasing you. That is crazy. K. Rool and the Kremlings and everything about them was literally perfect. They nailed it so hard. They got his vibe completely right. Just like ending with that little note of hope that he will return in the future, whatever the next Donkey Kong game is. Oh, it's so cool. I cannot imagine being one of those people that like played the country games and like were just begging for K. Rool to come back for literally years. To be one of those people right now, you must feel like you're above earth, dude. I cannot imagine it. My only Donkey Kong experience before I played Bananza and the country games right now was Country Returns. So I didn't even really know much about K. Rool until he got added to Smash, in which I did like started looking into who he was, because like I knew he existed but I didn't know what his deal was. But this game like taught me how impactful he actually is. Him existing in this game is just, it probably just means so much to so many people. But yeah, I'll stop glazing K. Rool now, and I guess I will talk about the timeline stuff that I referred to earlier. For like the first time in a really long time, this is like a game in the wider Mario series that cares about the timeline. I find it so funny that the game that everyone anticipated would fuck the timeline again, since like Mario games love to do that, was actually the game that fixed it. It literally repairs the timeline and makes it make more sense, because at least from what I'm gathering from the game, I think it implies that it happens before Odyssey, and it makes a distinction between the Pauline from the arcade game and the modern Pauline, the singer, which makes complete sense, because modern Pauline is literally all about that one fucking song that she sung in Mario Odyssey. That's her entire characterization now. Like when she was added to 8 Deluxe, she sung. I assume she does the same thing in Mario Kart World, and in this game she's all about singing. And they make it clear that they are now different people, because I think the implication is that it's Pauline's grandmother. And I don't really know how that works, because does that mean they both have the same name? I guess they just named child Pauline after her grandmother? But yeah, I think that is the implication. So Cranky Kong is the original DK who kidnapped Pauline's grandmother, and then, you know, time passes, and it makes sense. I guess I don't really know how the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, I don't really know how that makes sense, because that is very clearly modern Pauline as an adult getting kidnapped by modern DK, which this game establishes doesn't make sense. So I guess those games just aren't canon, I guess. But yeah, they make it so the previous Donkey Kong games exist, even in this kind of rewrite. They make it so they both exist, and they make modern Pauline separate from the classic one, which is something I really like, having them be separate characters, because like even you can get classic Pauline outfits in the game, and even that refers to her as like the lady, which I think is really cool that it refers to her like separately. And I think it's really cool that you see become comfortable with her singing, which then naturally leads into Mario Odyssey, where she is the mayor who sings. I don't know how she became a politician out of that, but I guess that is entirely unrelated. And like I mentioned it before, with canonizing K. Rool's absence, they just went out of their way to explain a lot of stuff that I think is really cool. And like fixing the timeline to make it make more sense, that's not like a Mario thing. Whenever I like was playing the game, I was like, why do they care more about the plot for this than like Zelda? Zelda's entire thing is the timeline. Everyone complains about the timeline all the time because it makes no sense, because they don't care. So why does Donkey Kong Bonanza of all games give a shit? It was just a really incredible surprise to go into that game and just like be proven wrong with the timeline stuff and K Rool. I could genuinely go on forever about like how all of that stuff was just so awesome. But there's gonna be other videos in like no time flat. There might already be videos talking about K Rool's appearance and stuff. But yeah, I guess I'll stop there. This video was a lot longer than I thought it would be. I thought this would just be a quick thing. But those are like my immediate thoughts and impressions of Bananza. Whether or not I will follow this up with anything, I'm not sure. I guess whenever I make my Switch 2 library video, I will cover it there very briefly. I mean, like, I don't know, it depends. I might make like a video about this if I really care, but I feel like that void's gonna get filled pretty quickly once people start finishing the game. So it would be kind of useless if I did it. And also, like, I have very little like negative things to say about this game. Kind of probably just like the big thing that everyone else is saying is that it kind of runs like shit sometimes. Sometimes in boss fights, especially in the K Rool boss fight at the end, it really runs bad. And during like the gold stages and stuff, it kind of like the frames drop very considerably. But that's something that they can fix in like an update or something. And also, I think Void Kong as a character just kind of sucked, and I think it would have been cool if he got a little bit more, because like Grumpy and Poppy appear in like the post game, and like even before the post game they have enough. I mean, I guess Grumpy kind of just fucks off out of the plot for some reason. Poppy's the only one that kind of sticks around, but those I really like those characters because they're kind of just like real as fuck. But Void Kong, the only thing I know about Void Kong is something that it told me in the loading screen about his mining company, but we never see that. We just see him being like, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, as like a caricature, he's very funny. I think he's fun as just like an insane CEO, but he doesn't really get a chance to do anything outside of his set goal. He doesn't really get a character moment, because like Poppy gets that in like the groove layer, where she's just like a character there and you get to understand her a little bit more. And I really like Poppy and Grumpy, but Void just doesn't really get that same treatment, because he just kind of gets punched out of the story by K Rool. Like, he literally does not show up again after that. He's just gone out of the plot. But like, that might just be a me thing. Maybe everyone else thought he was like completely fine. But yeah, that's kind of all of the stuff I have to say about the game right now. So yeah, if you watched this far, thank you, because this is a video that I kind of just made in the spur of the moment. And I kind of want to do stuff like this more after like playing games or just experiencing something, where I kind of just talk about it in the moment right after finishing it, because I think it is just a fun thing to do. But yeah, I don't know if I'll talk about this game again, but it was extremely fun. And if for some reason you've watched this and you haven't played it, like what are you doing here, man? Donkey Kong Bananza Game of the Year 2025.